this meeting to order. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Got a few important issues to get taken care of before the end of the year. We'll start with introductions. My name's Tyler Nairmore, Board President.
Chris Holliday.
Rich Parks.
Jim Haven, Vice President.
Stephen Spencer.
Sally Burbridge, City Administrator.
Sean Bowachak, East Ward Alderman.
Tammy Kohler, City Clerk.
Steve Payne, Public Works Director.
Brent Young, Airport Manager.
All right, so we need to approve the agenda because we've changed locations due to the upgrades in the city hall, so change our meeting location. Do I have a motion to approve this agenda?
Motion. So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Keeping up with us, Rich? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the October, that should be the, yeah, it is the October 15th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I make a motion we approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, moving forward, Steve, Brent, you guys want to give us an update on any projects and things we got going on at the airport?
I have nothing new to report. We've been dealing with all kinds of things, so, yeah, there's the heat units out there, the mini splits out, and my construction crew, I've got them so lined up with jobs, I can't quite get it installed yet, but that's next up on the project, is to have the drywall done and the mini split put in the pilot's lamp, so. And posting procedures for the lunar card.
And the cracks are all filled.
Yes, I was going to add that. We did get that completed.
The line painting will have to, the runway lines will have to be painted this next spring, summer, kick it to that warmer weather, so.
Steve, don't use them anyway.
We'll circle back to the line painting because that and the crack sealing's gonna affect some of the things we talked about tonight in our CIP plan. So we'll circle back to that a little bit. We've got our new hangars now. Can we go ahead and get that courtesy car moved into the overhead, the stall with the overhead door in the new hangar section, or?
See why not?
I don't see why it wouldn't. It should fit, no problem there. The piles of dirt that's on the edge of the runway, we should probably, and I should probably say all this at the end of the meeting, but you know, they're there now, and I know you guys are tied up, but next time we dump that stuff, we might keep it, I think it's at least 150 feet back from the center line to avoid some liability issues there. I'll circle back to the rest of that toward the end of the meeting. Do you guys have anything else you want to ask on updates or any of the projects we got going on?
Everything's good.
Okay, let's move on to the CIP stuff. Ian, you want to take it away for a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Having discussions with folks with the city and Tyler, now is the time to do our annual CIP update, something we do every year with MoDOT. And just as a reminder, all of this is, it's not binding. This is just for planning purposes. This is what sets us down the road and what we can plan for, not only in the near future, but 5, 10, 15 years and beyond. So I've taken last year's data and we've revamped our sheet, and I've put it on, and I've got some up-to-date financial things. How things are looking is that we wanted to, the thought process at this time last year was the next project, which would start this federal fiscal year, would be to construct taxi lanes for an additional 6-unit T-hangar. So essentially, the taxi lanes we just built for the current T-hangar, extend both of those down, and in the void, we'll put a new hangar in there. I did share some thoughts and ideas on not only that project, but things to consider otherwise. This type of project, taxi lanes and T-hangar, is considered revenue generating by MoDOT, and MoDOT will only let you use federal funds on a revenue generating project if the infrastructure currently in place at the airport is to a satisfactory level or better. What that means is the pavements have good, clean, crisp markings. They're not overly faded. The pavement condition, it's asphalt pavement out there. Yes, you can have cracks, but if the cracks are starting to get pretty wide and vegetation in there, they'd like to see that addressed. And as well as any electrical infrastructure. Are the lights and whatnot in any of your, in your wind cone, your tappies, are they working at a reliable level? I know there was some issues with the lights in the past, but Tyler said it sounds like that's gotten taken care of, which is great. So MoDOT will not let us proceed forward unless we can justify that the current infrastructure is at a satisfactory level or better. One thing to consider is we build the taxi lane, we then have to build the T-hanger. We can't build the taxi lane and walk away. So federally funding wise, that would probably tie us up for at least the next 5 years. So putting it another way, anything that goes bad out at the airport, as long as considering major pavement failure, or let's just say the whole electrical system goes down, the city would have to use their own means or apply for an emergency grant from MoDOT to get that fixed. And the emergency grants, they don't come out very often. It has to be a true emergency. So that's where I see it from my perspective, things to consider. What's on your mind there, Tyler?
I think that, we had kind of discussed how we've got a need to replace our fuel tank. That would allow us to have a little time, because like they mentioned, they're not gonna get the lines painted until spring, early summer next year. So we're not gonna pass for that taxi lane project right now anyway, just on that. We do have a PAPI they're the REILs. The PAPIs have a slight issue, but they've been fairly reliable. And then we've got a couple of the edge lights that need some attention, but that's not gonna take much to get that back in order. But I would think if we kind of address the fuel tank first, and of course this is all pending board recommendation anyway, but that would allow us to get some of the other things in order to where we could get MoDOT to allow us to do this next revenue generating hangar if that's what we decide to do.
Sure.
Based on everyone's input tonight again.
Yeah.
Just a curious question. Have you done any AWAS or ASOS installation projects?
Yes, we're actually in the process of getting a design phase off the ground up in Chillicothe in north central Missouri. They have an AWAS system currently, and they're gonna replace it with an AWAS 3PT. And that's pretty much a step down from the highest level of reporting you can get out of an AWAS. So that is getting off the ground currently. Don't have up to date. That's really that's the last. We've done some AWASs on the Kansas side, and I could pull some numbers if you're curious on that aspect. But we've done a couple in the last year, not so much in Missouri, but we are getting off the ground up in Chillicothe soon.
I was just curious if you knew like a rough budgetary number, and then also like if there's any benefits as far as like Part 135 operations and things like that have to or need to have that. In other words, what other benefits are there other than we know where the wind's coming from with that?
As far as benefits out of the AWAS?
Yeah, does it give us lower approach minimums? Does it give us, things along that line?
I know it's a big help if you have medical flights, medevac flights that come in and out. That AWAS data is critical for them. And I don't think Rolla is close enough that they could use that to rely on it. And if that is the case, you could use that to justify an AWAS. As far as approaches, yeah, I'd have to dig into this a little more, but I don't think approaches are too much AWAS data based, more as they are obstruction based and other factors. Really, that AWAS data is most critical for the medical flights in my recent experience. We've got a couple of folks on the Kansas side, they've had to turn away medical flights because they don't have an AWAS on site, and the folks don't feel comfortable without that data coming in and out of there.
Okay, I can see that. And so, you know, just for tonight, for planning purposes, I wanted to kind of present that as kind of an idea as well. It's been suggested before, but
Let me, while you're, if you just want to filibuster here for a second,
You bet.
I can pull you up. We bid an AWAS last year, and let me pull up the cost of that real quick. And this will be fairly comparable because they had to lay all new infrastructure to get to it, which would kind of be what you folks would be in here. Where this one was not necessarily a replace in the same location. So bear with me a second. Let me gather that data real quick.
sure.
So is an AWAS the wind speeds and directions?
Cloud cover,
Okay.
visibility, thunderstorm.
Altimeter, all
Altimeter.
sorts of things come out of there. It's in all of our flights with we contract through a third party sometimes if we're going to far distances, and I've never seen like our pilot. He is always checking AWAS data wherever he's close to because he's always trying to keep in touch with weather conditions. I'm not a pilot, but I've understood it. There is a lot of important data coming out of there.
And John could tell us what Aerovac's policy is on, you know, we accept this flight based on 1,000-foot ceilings, based on, you know, whatever. Do they have like a set in stone based off of AWAS data or?
So for medical flights, authorized reporting services, National Oceanics, Aeronautics, no, what is it, National NOAA? Not Aeronautics.
We'll say
Yeah,
NOAA.
yeah. So, NOAA, National Weather Service, they have various products that are fed data from remote sites, ASOS, AWAS, and they produce predictive models as well as current observations on conditions. So what we have here is a whole with respect to that, and most of what we do is a composite of looking at satellite imagery, trying to figure out what is actually happening. There's not necessarily a policy with respect to the distance from an aerodrome with respect to whether we can use that information or not because it feeds a larger model. The quality of that model is highly suspect and commonly we're not predicted properly here whatsoever. Or
Don't you have to
properly.
use two separate products?
Effectively, yes.
Right.
And we use a satellite-based product as well as the
In order
ground.
in order to get an opinion of.
But it is an opinion, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
that,
right.
and that comes to, it affects us to an extent, and it's more than a luxury item. It's in some cases, it can become critical, and it has, where we've had to divert or what have you, because we just don't know what's happening here. From a revenue-producing perspective from the city, what it does is a dot on the map for IFR, private IFR traffic that is typically the price point you want to be for folks who are coming from the Midwest to vacation. In their IFR certified aircraft, they have a wallet full of money. They're looking for a rental car, they're looking for hotels, they're looking for that sort of thing. Right now, we are a dot on a map that is not necessarily, what's the right word? We don't have
Desirable.
User
the
friendly.
je ne sais quoi, as the French would put it, and my French is fantastic. But there's something there. As a destination, if I'm filing IFR there, because I have only one weekend, I want to get on the water with the wife and kids or whoever else is going along, I can't count on doing it VFR, period.
And I'm gonna pause you for a second, just for you guys. VFR is visual flight rules. That would be like your everyday private pilot you see blasted around. Instrument flight rules is IFR. That's the guys flying through the clouds, coming in crummy weather. So
So that basically lends the facility here to a much more predictable planning destination where I can say, hey, I know I can fly in there on Friday night. The runway is listed as good condition or what have you. It's got appropriate lighting and it meets all the criteria for weather reporting. So I can reliably get in and pretty much get out based on, what the general forecast is with on-site weather reporting. The decision for go, no-go in those conditions is going to be tipped significantly in favor of go for the kind of folks that you want to bring to the area who are planning on making that kind of trip and spending that kind of money locally. So from a city perspective, that's the upshot. Medical flights, you know, we make it work. It would be very nice to have, but I'm not gonna say that's the make or break. Really, this is a economic development issue, more than impacting directly a medical flight.
Very well said.
And if we could kind of show that as economic development, is there a little bit of money in the tourism budget that could help with that, or?
We don't have a tourism budget. The city doesn't. So, yeah.
The Chillicothe AWAS, are they decommissioning that or simply replacing it and reselling it?
They are replacing it. I don't know we haven't gotten deep enough into the weeds yet to figure out what we're gonna do with the current system. If you folks are interested in purchasing secondhand, I've never gone through with that, but I've heard it's been done before. If that's something that you folks are interested in, I can certainly start. And their system is, I wouldn't call it's for the most part, it's reliable. They're just looking to get one of the latest systems that's out there. More importantly for them, they need to move it to a location that is acceptable by the FAA. And the FAA said, well, or MoDOT and the FAA said, well, if we're gonna move it, we may as well replace it. So that's the reasoning behind the emphasis or the basis of this project. So I can get more information on the AWAS if you'd like, as far as its reliability and keep you folks in the loop.
Absolutely. And that would be my other concern is, where would we put it that we're gonna get reliable wind data, basically. The rest of it I'm not as concerned about, but the wind, speed, and direction would be the biggie there, and we've got a little bit of an issue there.
There's 3 different radiuses,
Getting a little connection issue here.
500 foot and 1,000 foot. And at each different level, you have to have a certain amount of height restrictions. So, for example, I believe it's the 1,000 foot radius, you can't have within there anything taller than 25 feet. So oftentimes what comes with AWAS projects is tree clearing, and we're gonna have to do some tree clearing up at Chillicothe for the new location. Now, if you're installing it yourself, you don't have to adhere to the true radiuses since you're kind of self-funding it. But then you are getting suspect data by the obstructions that would be, hindering the true reporting of the wind mainly. But there's that to keep in mind.
Yeah. We've cleared about all the trees we can clear on our property.
Still would be interesting to see what the residual value on that unit is.
Does anybody else have any comments on, what you think about the AWAS system, having a weather system at Salem? Because we've got Fort Leonard Wood and we've got Vichy. Like John said, there is a big hole here. People like me, I don't pay a lot of attention to it. But like he said, the people that we're trying to draw into the community will look at that. Would be interesting on a budgetary number when Ian's able to find that.
Yeah, I apologize.
No, you're
You cut
fine.
out on me there.
Well, while you're still looking, I'm gonna cover a couple other things on this topic, Ian.
Sure.
So we mentioned the fuel system. Our carb breeder is all but brand new, so we can retrofit and use our card reader. We've got a rebuilt pump, I believe, still in storage, right? We basically need to look at any piping and a tank, a smaller tank that would fit in our confinement area there. Is there any objection to moving that up on the priority list? Because like he said, if we go ahead with the taxi lane project and our fuel tank goes out, it's on us for till 2031. So personally, my recommendation would be make that our top priority
With one fuel grade?
for now, until we're able to. I mean, we do have a lot of helicopter operations that burn Jet A. It would take some sort of commitment before we could justify going all out and spending, you know, say $100,000 on getting a second. And then not only that, we're gonna have to make sure it stays fresh and doesn't degrade and.
Salem Wood Products has to fly out of here, stop and fuel before they go anywhere after they land here.
But normally, they're coming in here pretty heavy, and in the summertime, they like having it kind of light on
But he
fuel.
said they would buy fuel.
They would
here,
buy it
and
here?
fuel. You know, they leave here, they go to Lebanon or the closest place, they buy
Mhm.
Jet A, and then they go where they need to go.
Yeah, and both their Pilatus and their Jet
They're
burn
both
that.
Jet A. I mean, I don't know how many times a year they visit here, but it's a pretty substantial amount of landings.
Several.
Mhm.
And I think that if you presented Jet A, there would be more aircraft stop here to buy fuel and just.
Well, and
stop
NBC was here just this last week. They've got a Airbus helicopter, and
flying a lot
Is there
of-
something wrong with our tank? I didn't know.
last time when they looked at it, they said it's time to start thinking about buying a new one.
But I thought we did some work to it to make it.
They just cleaned it, right? Inspected
Right,
and
right.
cleaned.
They just cleaned,
Got the
inspected
sediment
it.
out.
So the problem was when it was set up, was set direct on the ground.
Mhm.
So it's not on any kind of pad or anything. And so the bottom is rusting out
Yeah,
from the
your water
outside.
just can't get out of there. It's just trapped on the bottom forever.
One thing
Doesn't
about
seem
the-
like that'd be very expensive to replace.
Yeah, for the tank. It shouldn't have to be double walled since we've got the containment area. I can see where that would be rather expensive if we had to get that.
One thing about bridging into Jet A is, like Derek pointed out, it's a different customer base. If I were looking at this place on a map and it had an AWAS that was weather reporting, I was en route to somewhere, basically. This wasn't a destination. And I had a Pilatus or some other relatively short field capable aircraft that was comparable. AWAS, Jet A, hey, I hit that on my way to wherever. You will see the quantities of fuel you sell when you're in the Jet A market go up. How much fuel does that Pilatus need? Quite a bit, turbine engine.
300
And
gallons.
The light jets, it's the same thing. You will be selling, your per sale quantity will be substantially higher than what you have with AvGas. And so it's sort of a different paradigm when you think about it, turning a profit by stocking that product. And that is going to be a higher price point product, I shouldn't say higher price point, a higher revenue product with respect to the sheer volume that you're getting purchased at every turn. So the combination, obviously 5-year, 10-year, of weather reporting, Jet A, you suddenly become a credible spot on the map for people to transition through those sales you capture that you don't typically get with your typical avgas customer.
I would think that length of runway would be our.
And that becomes then, and that is, so that the Pilatus, obviously, the PC-12, some, you know, you can get one of the King Air, the BE-20s maybe, get in there, you know, and yes, length of runway is a consideration at that point.
That would be our barrier to.
That's our limiting factor.
to
And it's a
actually-
significant limiting factor.
I can't overlook the fact that we have a tremendous demand for hangars here. So I hate to just say, let's do all this fun stuff, and it's very valuable, you know, we need it all. We just gotta figure out what we do first and what order we do it in.
The hangars are typically built new. Some of these other things might be secured second or third hand.
I don't have a problem with, like, if he comes up with something about Chillicothe buying that used, I don't have a problem with that. You know, we would have to, like he's saying, they would have to do another location. We'd have to just run electric to it. It would have to have a new radio, or the radio, I guess, would be part of the installation, but
What are the chances of vendor putting a tank in and then servicing it?
we went down that road with Titan before. I don't think they were interested at the time.
Didn't sell enough fuel.
Yeah.
But there again, like he's saying, if we start, I would be interested in talking to like the managers at Farmington and Kennett and places like that, and just ask them, you know, hey, which they have long enough runways now, but before, it wasn't always like that, but hey, you know, when your Jet A came in, what'd that do for your airport? I'd be interested in finding out how that worked out for some of the other smaller airports.
Yeah, we would need some of that data anyway. I mean, because otherwise it's kind of just a build it and they will come and fingers crossed. And I'm not doubting what you're saying, John, I'm just, do you know what I mean, we'd need some data.
Sure. When
Behind
you're
it.
flying, to give you a perspective of flying, because I feel like, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't think you guys have a perspective of what it's like to be in the air in an aircraft. And I'm not trying to pick on you, but when you're flying, you look for places that, A, aren't as busy, have a decent facility, you can stop, get your fuel, get a snack, get a drink, whatever it is, and you're out of there. You're not messing with air traffic control. But airports are just like gas stations. When you drive down the highway, do you stop at the nasty gas station that looks disgusting and you don't want to use the bathroom, or do you go to the, do you go to the mobile or whatever it is that looks nice? I mean, it's all in retrospect. Your people in aviation usually spend more money.
Right.
Your nicer aircraft are gonna bring more money to your community than, I mean, that's kinda how you have to look at the airport.
No,
It's a
and
gas station. at the
I
end
think
of
we
the
all
day.
get all of that, but even stores, even chains that have convenience stores and gas stations don't just go put one down somewhere without some data. So we gotta make
No,
sure
I'm
we've
saying
got
that, but
data.
I'm just saying from a pilot's perspective, you look for the ones that are less busy. A place like Salem's a great place to stop versus going to a place that has 20 aircraft in the pattern and you're trying to get in and out and get fuel. That's what I'm, like, they'll fly an extra 30 miles to get here versus going to Vichy if there's a lot of traffic. Or I don't know if you guys would agree with that or not, but normally cross-country, you try to play in the airports you know have.
I want to make sure I go to an airport to where if I'm planning a bathroom stop and a fuel stop, I want to make sure they're going to be there for me when I need them. Because I don't want to show up and the fuel not work, the bathroom not be serviced. I want to make sure, I'm like you, it needs to be reliable and get a good reputation going for them.
Location is critical too.
Mhm.
We actually kind of a geographical oddity here. We are 2
Perfect.
hours from everywhere. And it is very much a hole that you have to circumnavigate if you want to get fuel on your way somewhere else. And we sort of are more central than we think in that respect. It's
Yeah,
St.
from
Louis.
here to Poplar Bluff is the next stop going south.
Yeah, so you got Vichy and Poplar Bluff, but
Mhm.
from here, you got St. Louis, Columbia, Springfield, equidistant for all intents and purposes. And if you're on your way to anywhere else, it's actually not that bad to consider, popping through as far as a cross country goes. And right now, we don't have that data captured with respect to how many people bypass.
Right.
And let's talk about this for a second. So this plan we're doing right now, we can say, all right, let's get our gas tank fixed this year. Let's make that top priority. We can change, and Ian's probably gonna say that as well, we can change the order of things next year. This is updated every year,
Right.
so.
Yep.
Well, you could always do the dirt work for those hangars.
Yeah. We could dump some fill out there and they wouldn't have so much
Yeah,
dirt to
that's-
fill.
That's low hanging fruit right there.
Yeah, but once they pave the taxi lanes, our funding's tied up until those hangars are completed. And I would suggest when we do another set of hangars, putting 8 or 10 of them in there instead of just 6.
It's gonna be funding dependent though too.
Mhm.
I mean,
And the cost of everything went up. Ian, have they had any more discussion about upping the VIL allocations every year?
Well, what came out of that was good and bad. So Congress, earlier this calendar year, they, as part of the latest appropriation, instead of upping the amounts of the NPE that you receive every year, they decided we're going to go a different direction. And traditionally, these projects are split 90% federal / MoDOT, 10% local. They decided, well, we'll keep the allocations the same, but we'll change it to 95%, 5%. Which from Sally's perspective, she's probably like, that's awesome, great. That's less the city has to help put in. But the downside is it doesn't get us any closer to anything because the federal amount stayed the same. Now, the bill program, which ends in fiscal year 26, so we have this year and next year, those values fluctuate based on operations. There's an equation that the Salem Memorial will fall into. But I've just been planning what you folks have received for the last year, which is 113. I think we're going to slot in pretty close to there. It'd be great if we tiered up to the 145 level, but I don't have my hands on the equation or the data to know. So for planning purposes, you'll receive your traditional 150 in NPE, 150,000, and your 113,000, give or take a couple, for the BIL. So that's the news for the funding splits, and I am optimistic, and I'm not trying to go political, but I think with the change in administration, and this is what I've been hearing in the industry, with the change in administration and the continued crumbling of the nation's infrastructure, I am optimistic that we will see another transportation bill get pitched and probably pass through within the first 2 years, considering there is control of the House, Senate, and ultimately the presidency. I think the folks that are on the Department of Transportation side and those lobbyists know that this last transportation bill was not near enough, and we haven't addressed enough, and we're going to need to pump more in. And with that comes more jobs, theoretically. So I'm optimistic that Bill 2.0 will happen. We'll see. These next 2 years are going to be really interesting. I'm from that aspect, I'm excited to see what comes out of Washington.
And you briefly mentioned the amount of operations to get us to that next tier. For some reason, 500 operations was what was sticking in my head. How do they determine what an operation is?
Well, so an operation is either a takeoff or a landing. So if you just do a touch and go, there's 2 right there. You got somebody doing 10 touch and goes a day, there you go, you got 20 operations.
Oh, I've got the 500 myself, yeah.
But all of that is gathered through filed flight plan data. Is the most reliable. And so that's what they're using to gather that information. Now we'll see. Maybe operations aren't just what plays into it this year. The bill program, I've noticed each year has kind of been a work in progress. They've changed some aspects here and there, minor tweaks, but we'll see what comes out. We should know the allocations, I'd say mid-December. We're getting into the time of year where the allocation should be coming out. And as soon as I find that, I'll update all of you. And hopefully we can get to that $145,000 range. But
Should we incorporate the cost of this paint that we're gonna be doing the striping into this, like, put it in kind of with our fuel tank, or, cause we said your bid was 15,000 to have it done. Was that like a professional? They've done it at other airports, and,
I believe Ian hooked me up with the
Ian did.
vendor.
is it the outfit that's out of, I apologize, I cut out there. Was it the outfit out of the Springfield area?
I believe so. I don't have my notes with me
Yeah.
on it. So.
Tyler, that price point they gave and the work they do is top notch. They are who I recommend. They do pavement maintenance and painting. They rehab the pavements as well as paint it up. So they do a top level job, and you got a pretty good price compared to what you did out of some other outfits for the level of professionalism you get.
I just wanna make sure that when when we send pictures up and things like that, that we do kinda measure up to par with them to where we can proceed with the new hangar project again, and meet their specs infrastructure wise.
Sure. Yeah, I as long as the lights keep working and the public works team there goes out and fills cracks as they, whether that's once a year or once every 2 years, and then the new coat of paint, the paint is gonna last you it will last you the whole cycle from when we do a taxi lane to a hangar. And if we can at least every other year get public works out there to fill cracks, that's gonna go a long ways. A lot of outfit or city or county's public works or county works teams, they don't do their own maintenance. And then that's when the pavement really starts to crumble quickly. So it sounds some cracks. That goes a long way. And that alone will help justify us to be okay to go forward with the hangar project.
Okay. So Ian, what do you need from us tonight? I mean, I guess all this is gonna go through our board of aldermen also to be approved to go to, back to Ian, right,
Yeah.
to Lochner?
Yeah.
So you're just kinda needing to make sure everybody agrees with the, kind of the plan for the next 10 years, correct?
Correct. At the very least, the next project. If we don't agree on, so if we want to do the fuel as the next project, perfect. And then maybe you folks say, let's talk about beyond the next, let's talk about the second and third project later. That's fine too. At a very minimum, we just need to figure out what we want to do as project number one.
I know that the fuel tank is not gonna consume all of our allocated funds there. I know some of it we can bank, but are we able to bank any of the other funding?
I guess elaborate, you cut out a little bit. Elaborate
sorry.
again on, what was the question again? So I'm understanding clearly.
So, you know, we're allocated all this, from the BIL to the NPE. The fuel tank's not gonna cost that much. I know we can bank the NPE for 4 years. I don't know about the rest, but I just wanna make sure we're taking full advantage of all of our funding that's available.
We are, certainly. In order to not, we're gonna have some fiscal year 2023 BIL that will be expiring next fiscal year that we need to start planning on. So if we want to sit this year out, we sure can. We're not gonna lose any funding, but come next year, we're gonna need to address things as far as using some funds for a new tank or going the taxi lane route. It's not gonna be too expensive if we're able to retrofit some of your existing system out there now. It sounds like you just are kind of pursuing a new tank. And then we've got the pump, the card reader, and our fueling sub-consultant we use is an expert in that realm. He has no issues, at least in my experience, with speccing out a new tank with all the things that you think are important on it and getting that retrofitted into a system. So if that's the route we want to go, I don't see any derail us too far.
Awkward silence.
Are you back, Ian? We lost you for a bit.
I was gonna say, cut the video feed so the audio works.
I'm gonna turn my video. I'm gonna turn my video off and see if that maybe helps me
I don't know if
connect
it's
a
his
little
or
better.
hers, though.
So far, so good.
Gotcha.
Okay. Did you catch any of that last
No.
round?
No.
If we go forward with a tank, procuring a tank and then retrofitting it, I'm not too concerned that that's gonna push the taxi lane and T hangar very far off. If you wanna give me the type of tank, I believe it's avgas is what you're looking for,
Yes.
and then about the size, for some reason, 3,000 gallons is sticking out in my mind. If you want to give me a general gallon size, and if you're looking at avgas, I can kind of work up some general estimates of what I think that'd be to procure the tank and then get the system retrofitted.
What we can do is just measure that containment pit
you'd
and
like.
see what, I think we cut out again, but I think we can just measure that containment pit and kind of let them know what they have to work with out there.
Yeah, that'd be good.
While you're doing that, based on the discussion this evening, do you want to see if there can leave space for the second fuel tank?
They could knock one of the walls out in the future and expand.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't need to be more than 2,500.
It goes through about 22 to 2,400 gallons per year right now.
So, I mean, if you
What
had
we've been going through.
That would
Which would-
increase if fuel is available and operational.
We've been down quite a bit. We've been,
But it's not reliable. Like,
That's, yeah.
No one's gonna come, you can't plan a trip, and then, I mean, it's a long ways to go to get fuel anywhere else. To go to Vichy, it's another 30 minutes by the time you start up, taxi out and fly up there. So you can't plan, it's not like you can pull over when you run out, you know? So you have to have dependable fuel,
Yeah.
and then your sales will go up.
mhm.
And you can only get 17 gallons at a time again. You got 17, I mean, it's incredibly inconvenient to have to swipe your card 5
Huh?
times.
I'll-
Those issues now.
Apparently, I see, nobody notifies us at the office when this stuff happens.
So you're having those issues now, you
You
can't
get
get.
17.56
Okay.
gallons at a time, and then after you run your credit card 3 times, it declines it because they think it's fraud,
Gotcha.
because it's the same
Okay.
amount running 3 times.
So just to all pilots in the room or anybody else who might be listening, yeah, you guys have issues like that, you have to call us at the office, otherwise nobody tells us.
No. We can't help you if you don't let us know
Right.
what's going on.
Yeah, that's
Aren't
a
you guys
call
filling your
to,
airplanes?
I mean, you should be able to see the transactions on your thing to see that it's only letting you get $96 of fuel at a time.
That's a call to OPW. I'll take care
Yeah.
of that. See if they can.
Kind of hard to fix it if you don't know about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's been going on a long time.
Well, it was 12 and a half, and then Jason Hogan took it up to $500, and it worked great. And then, for whatever reason, I don't know if the credit card companies are doing it to us or what, but it apparently reverted back to that 17 and a half gallons.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a call to
Really nice to have a
OPW.
cash option where I could write you a check when I'm buying 100 gallons of fuel at a time, because it's ridiculous for you to pay a 3% transaction fee on.
I don't know how we do that with an automated system
That
out
would
there,
have
an
to be a
unmanned.
fleet card.
I mean, that's a,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm just saying, like, you're losing money there too, but.
Yeah, that would have to be a fleet card for the local pilots. So it's something we could possibly look into. Our card reader is set up for that. We would just have to learn the software somehow. They're itching to train us on it, but I don't know anything about it.
What if there's a local bank that would help support something like
For 3.5%.
Gotta at least go 2 3/4. Beat that.
But has anybody ever checked what the rates cost to process a car on that machine?
I haven't,
I mean, you guys are paying it, that's why I'm asking.
right, no.
Because I would bet that if I was guessing, and I could be wrong, but I process lots of credit cards, at your transaction rates, I bet it's costing you between 10 and 12%, which may be higher than your profit margin on the fuel.
I mean, that's their merchant services contract, though. I mean, that's something,
Yeah, but when they're like that and they're isolated, the fees are so much higher, plus the transaction fees, they throw in all these fees. I'm sure that nobody's ever done a PCI compliance quiz on it. So if you're not PCI compliance, you're paying $99 a month for that. That's $1,200 a year. So you gotta figure that into your processing cost if you're not doing it. Unless it's tied into the city system and that's done. I mean, I'm just stating
Right.
what it's
you
costing
should be,
you to
you
do
should be
business.
compliant.
Gotcha. I know it's not part of the rest of our system,
So
so
then it would
it's,
have to have its own
yeah.
separate PCI compliance.
Yeah, we definitely don't wanna be losing money on fuel. We're having a hard enough time paying for the card reader as it is, but,
never mind. Not a conversation with this meeting, so.
sure.
So spec out a fuel tank.
So yeah, does anybody object to a fuel tank being next in line? Okay, so I think that's unopposed, Ian, for speccing out a fuel tank. Or somebody can get you some measurements on the containment pit. I drive by there tomorrow, so.
That sounds good.
Okay.
If you don't mind, unless you know now, what's the size of tank you're looking for?
We've been buying about 2,200 gallons a load,
22
right?
to 2,400 gallons per year.
Per year.
Yeah.
But when we buy it by a half load, right? Or do you just
Yes.
order 2,000
Sometimes
gallons?
it's even less than that, less than a half load, yeah.
Do we buy split loads and
A lot of
can we
times.
continue to do that?
Yes,
Don't
that's
have
what
to buy
we, they give us better pricing when they get split loads.
We get
on
fresher
there.
fuel too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, 1,500 gallon Tyler's.
Oh, no, we want a little, I mean, I think we want the capacity to be upward toward 3,000.
don't know why you want something
Well-
that big.
Well, that's a half a load. 7,500 gallons is a load.
Yeah.
And so if you don't, you're gonna have to pay the extra.
We're only burning
hauling.
2,200 a year.
Yeah.
Well, we've been down 6 months out of last year though, so if we keep it going, we're gonna burn more.
If I was only getting 17 gallons at a go, I'd probably stop.
Well, I swipe my card like 4 times.
I would bypass Salem. I mean, I would if I was, it's just an inconvenience, you know?
It's it's not just for local pilots, folks who are doing those longer flights, they have to shape the rest of their legs with the knowledge, even if they're going to stop here, they have to have enough fuel on board that leave with that fuel, go hit another airport on their way back to wherever they, and then they're like, screw it, I'll just.
Yeah, and time's money in airplanes, you're talking $100 worth of just, if you're renting a plane, that would be over $100 there and back.
That's definitely top priority, and, you know, yeah, I wonder with respect to the volume of the tank, if there is a leveling off with price per volume on the curve there to figure out if it's, you know, if 2,500 versus 3K, it turns out the 3K is only $500 more or something.
Yeah, I mean, Ian, it needs to make sense, I mean, if it, I don't think there's gonna be a huge spike between, 2,000, 3,000 gallons, something like that, there will be a little bit, but whatever makes sense too. We don't need 5,000 gallons just because it'll fit in the containment pit.
Right. My initial thought is a 3,000, because I don't know the fees involved with when you have to call a transport each time. And, you know, if you go with a smaller than that, and all of a sudden you start selling fuel like crazy, then you're calling more transports out. There's probably a fee involved as far as the delivery that, you know, if you had the 3,000, it's at least sitting there and you've got it. Saves you that delivery fee if you go smaller. But the whole time, I thought we were thinking maybe 3,000. That just kind of seems appropriate for where we're at, I feel, in my opinion.
I would feel comfortable with that.
I concur.
But if you have a 3,000 gallon tank, what's the capacity that you'd be able to hold? 2,500, 2,200?
Yeah, with expansion.
Yeah, and then the overflow and so on and so forth.
And when we're talking working volume, 3,000, I guess is
Okay.
kind of what I'm thinking, but. Cause they say our tanks, I'm sorry. Ian.
Go ahead, sorry, Tyler, go
Well, I
ahead.
was just gonna kind of throw out there, they say our tank's 10,000 gallons, but it might have a actual volume of 11, 12,000 gallons, so.
If you could get me measurements of the containment pit and just some general info, if you do have it, on your pump that you've got and your credit card reader, I'm gonna run that stuff by our sub-consultant and try to get a good cost estimate put together. And it may require some back and forth so that I'm clear on what the scope is and that we're all in agreement. And once we get that cost estimate put together, I'll share, we can then accurately plan what's next for the future when we can get to that stuff.
Sure. Does anybody have any objections with leaving? So on our current 10-year plan, we've already got everything through 2025 completed. No. Yeah, 24 is completed, so it starts at 25. But we're basically leaving this the same and adding the fuel tank to the top of the list. Does anyone object to that recommendation?
As long as it includes the painting in the fuel tank, if we can put that in.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't use it to help with the, especially if they're gonna pay 95% of it now if it gets approved. Did you catch that, Ian?
A little bit, it's a little soft there. What was that again?
So we were talking about just adding the, along with the fuel tank, adding the striping into that as well.
They'd be it's two separate scopes of work. There would be no issue. It wouldn't be ran under the same construction contract, but I don't see any issue why we can't do that alongside as far as two projects in the same year. But MoDOT, because they're two different scopes of work, they would be ran separately, two different project numbers, contracts, all that stuff.
Completely understandable.
So there is, I do want to just say this caveat of, with the fuel system, there is guidance out there from the FAA about what is eligible and ineligible for consideration. I need to clarify with MoDOT if taking and retrofitting like a pump and a credit card reader that are already existing with a new pump, would the labor involved in that effort be eligible for federal participation? There's some little nuances that need to be clarified that I'm also going to have to do some legwork. I want to make sure that MoDOT is on board and agreeable to this scope preliminarily before we move forward.
Okay.
Because in some, I don't want them to say, well, just do a whole new system, all new pump, all new, there's no need. We've got 80% of the infrastructure now. We just need the tank and whatever labor and small parts involved to get it all hooked up. That is another hoop. I wouldn't necessarily call it a hoop. It's a box we need to check as part of this preliminary analysis for this type of project.
Would new underground plumbing be included in that?
I'd make
Fuel
it part of
system?
that.
I would think it would be
Yeah, I
a
would
good time to
definitely make.
update it,
Mhm. I'd make it part of that if it wasn't.
Tyler, has any thought been given to the legacy hangars with respect to the new hangar projects? Obviously, we need to get a taxi lane cooked into this cake here, but then the presumption is that we are siting this in a new location. Are the legacy hangars under consideration at all, or have they been for demolition and replacement with something new? And would it save us anything with respect to the improvements required for a taxi lane that we would no longer need?
So, Ian, he's brought up kind of a point there. I mean, right now, we need all the hangars we can get. We've got people who don't care if, as long as it's a roof over their plane, that's all they want right now, just to beat nothing. But I think what he's asking is if we did, I mean, right now, the plan is to build these additional hangars just right off the end of the hangars we just built.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you're asking is, would it save us money if we built them right there where some of these other hangars already
The
had?
Schwartz hangar and
Yeah.
some of the others, that we really, if we're calling it a hangar, we're being generous.
Because you're not gonna have to build up the area. You've already got a taxi lane right
Don't
there.
need to fill.
Well, they would probably still want to build taxiways because those are so dilapidated.
They've got specs on their taxi lanes for sure.
Be a much cheaper, easier build though, right?
And that's what you're saying.
The infrastructure is more or less.
But then we're gonna be without
then we're
additional
not-
hangars for a long time.
Right, we're not gaining any net number of hangars.
Yeah, we've
I mean-
been dangerously close to losing our funding all this time. And then if they do that, then you're out for
Right,
4 or 5 years there.
after that, yeah. So 10 years, I mean,
I think we would be laughed at if we did that.
What's wrong with the south side? Like, I mean, I know there's a tree line and, like, even closer to the runway, I don't know the parameters offset that it has to be, but like, that's flat. I mean, that would.
Yeah,
save-
there's some real estate available over there as well.
Seems like that'd be a lot more efficient, and then, or, quickly. I mean, you don't have to compact the ground, fill. A lot
And,
easier working area, it seems like. Seems like we're cramming a bunch of stuff to the north and there's not.
Would you create a second entrance, basically, to get over there instead of driving around, potentially?
Continue staying on the taxiway? I mean,
You have to cross the runway to get over there.
Oh,
He's
no,
talking
I'm
about
saying
there
on
where the
south
rotating
side.
beacons
Do an
at.
F.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of, that's actually.
If I could propose an idea. I can't. Crap. Oh, shoot. I have an aerial pulled up, or a drone photo, when I was there last year. And just to kind of talk about where I'm at. There's the terminal building, there's your fuel tank. There's this large gap between the apron and then a taxi lane as we go from from west to east. There's a
Which one,
large
Sherry?
void there. What if
Ian,
we fit a,
do you want to try doing screen sharing? I don't know if,
Uh,
He would have
try
to share
again.
his screen.
I know, that's what I'm,
it says host disabled.
yeah, just a second.
Okay.
How about now?
She's talking about the spot where the tie downs are behind there.
Yeah,
I think
here,
so.
let me,
Toward the beacon though, I think is where he's.
That's assuming our internet connection will handle it.
That's where Caleb's talking about.
let me
That's-
know
that's
when
a good
this
idea.
pops up.
We own that, right?
Okay, got it.
The taxiway years ago, Steve.
It's up.
Jim, do you guys remember?
All right,
the
perfect.
taxiway used to be farther south than what it is now.
This
What I
void
thought I
here,
remembered.
We used to
would
drive
this
down.
be a viable candidate to build a hangar? You've got taxi lanes on either side. What's
Right
the
there.
general thought on that?
Two hangers.
Right there at the fuel pump and taxi lanes there, that's a really good idea. There's a ditch right there just to the right of your clicker, but that could be taken care of.
Would that be a lot of money for 2 hangars, or 3?
We'd have to take out Jim's hangar.
Yeah,
Oh,
the-
you're talking about going full length all the way to the airback. all the way
Not,
back.
not necessarily taking out the existing, but building between
There in the taxi.
what
That'd be like
existing,
2 hangars.
building to pavement, just in this grassy void.
So, yeah, you're looking, that hangar with the yellow plane's about 40 feet wide. So you're looking at about an 80-foot span there, going north to south,
With a hole.
yeah. It's a viable option for, like if somebody wanted to build a, private hangar there, we talked about a land lease option.
But, but a land lease is generally gonna be for a specific business enterprise. Not just a hangar to house your airplane, it's gonna be an operating business.
And the reason I suggest this is there's what would be minimal pavement needed. You've got your infrastructure pavement-wise on both sides. Yes, it's not as big as what we hope as like a 6-unit, but I don't have the exact specs, but maybe we could fit a 3 or a 4 in here and get you a little bit more and save a lot less money instead of extending the new taxi lanes that we had just built. Just a thought, I'm curious how you folks think about that.
Yeah, if you can run down that trail for us and kind of see if that's an option, that would be, because like you said, you're cutting out the,
Schwarzenegger.
Take the Schwarzenegger out.
Yeah,
and
so-
just build
yeah, we
it
could
all
also
across
take the
there.
Schwarzenegger out, that yellow airplane could go, it's the same idea.
We could use that whole area.
We could use the tank too. We put it over there.
Ian, I'm not opposed to that at all.
Let me look up some specs, let me, behind the scenes, look at Google Earth and look at some specs for a T-hanger, and just give me 5 minutes and see if this is an actually feasible idea,
Okay,
and let's talk about it more, if you don't mind.
yeah, absolutely.
I only have 5 more minutes personally going.
Yeah, it's almost
The Schwarzenegger
7.
should really be in play. I mean, we shouldn't be kidding ourselves as far as its viability for housing an aircraft. If the potential exists to do 2, 3 aircraft T hangars and rip that one out,
Amen.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's gonna be afraid of the tank and stuff under there anyway, so.
Go to the agenda.
We are going out tomorrow to look in, placing a pole next to the pilot's lounge, and Rommel's on board with putting cameras up and the system
Okay.
in there, so that's brewing, it's just taking a little time. So,
The gate, is that on there?
It will be. Ian, I think if it gets you kind of in business for now, what we can do, and we can address this again next year or anything like that, but if we can get our fuel and paint on board for our top priority and just kind of leave the T-hangers penciled in after that, will that be good enough to move forward for now?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Like I mentioned, let me do my background research of making sure this is feasible from a funding perspective federally, make sure they buy in,
Okay,
and I'll report back with whatever I hear. I'm fairly confident it will be, but I've been surprised before, so
Okay.
I don't want to make a promise and then have to back up on it.
sure. And we don't wanna tie you up all night either, and I don't want
For
this
tomorrow
meeting
and Thursday,
or tomorrow or Thursday, yeah. So,
so that sounds good.
yeah, appreciate you, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, no
So,
problem.
Hold up, guys. So in order to make a recommendation to the board, you guys need to vote.
Make a motion.
I just wanted to.
Right, but I
Yes,
mean, so we wanna make sure that we're clear and us and Ian are on the same page about what you're voting on is to take what's in the 10-year plan right now, except insert the fueling system as the next project for this next year, right?
And paint.
And
So yeah,
paint,
pending
right.
that MoDOT's on board with us retrofitting a new tank, and then also adding the striping,
Okay,
to where we
okay,
can.
thank you.
Get
It needs to be
infrastructure,
stated
yes.
clearly so that
So-
it's, yeah.
So to state that clearly, we're gonna try to retrofit a new tank and get our fuel system fixed reliably, all in all. And then stripe the pavement to where we meet the specs that we're gonna have to meet to where they will be on board with us with this revenue generating hangar project. Otherwise, they're not gonna, as we sit right now, they won't let us do it, so.
All right, to make it official, I'll make a motion to amend the 10-year plan to add a fuel system, or actually to look at the fuel
Great.
system, add the tank, and also to restripe the runway.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
In other business, let's see. We're working on the pilot lounge, when they can get it worked in with other projects. The gate opener, I know Rommel said they used to use LiftMaster as well as their industrial gates, but if we can contact some kind of contractor that specializes in that, we've got the money in our budget. I believe we allowed $5,000 for it. Cause we do have, ever so often, the gate will get left open and we'll have to go and shut it, so gate opener would stop that.
I'm good with the contractor working on it and making sure it functions right, and not saying that our crews couldn't put it together, but let's have the
Warranty
pros
it.
do it.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And are
You're
we
spending $2,500 on the opener alone, so we wanna
You're
make
sure
it's
you
right.
wanna come off the busier highway and not the secondary highway? You wanna do the big rolling gate versus,
I prefer to come off. What do you guys think? I prefer to go in our natural way. We've been going around the gravel, right?
I'd just soon go in off of F Highway.
Off of F Highway?
Yeah.
If they do that, they're gonna have to put all new posts in, so be it, as long as they don't tear out our water and, yeah, our existing posts there won't
Because the
support
water
the.
line is.
The water line, the phone line's close, but,
Those posts aren't any good.
so they've had to go in, even that green gate was, you guys fixed that and braced it back up to where that green gate could sit straight again, right? So
Yes.
we could just as well plan on a whole new gate. It's gonna up the price quite a bit to put new posts and,
I wouldn't go in there then.
Agreed. I'm gonna have to come off the highway for the sake of common sense.
I don't object to the highway just because you're sitting there at a 90-degree angle instead of an angle trying to get out of there, but,
The highway's better, I think, because otherwise if somebody parks their plane, you gotta kinda navigate around it if you come in through.
my thought was it keeps people from dragging all the gravel off their tires onto our taxi lanes and onto the, keeping that kinda down, so, that was my thought,
Yeah, makes more sense. I agree.
so. Plan on the highway gate there, on the 32 entrance.
gotcha.
And just lock the other gate and keep it sealed off.
I did wanna briefly touch on, you guys had mentioned that as our hangars are getting vacated, you're gonna have your building inspector in there. You guys have the right to inspect all those hangars tomorrow if you want to, it's in the lease, you guys can inspect them. It wouldn't hurt, cause you know that we're gonna have a bunch of us already vacating, some of them are already vacated.
Right.
But if you can get them down there next available opportunity, just inspect them all and get a condition report on them and see, that way, so if my hangar's vacated, do we even wanna list that as an option for the next guy? Cause we gotta move pretty quick here, we're gonna lose our 10 airplanes. 'Cause we've got 6 more, but if we have 6 more that are held up, and we can't lease because we're waiting on them to get upgraded.
So the main thing we just need to know is when you all are vacated out of the old ones you're moving out of.
Yeah.
We just need to know.
Rich
Yeah.
has told me that he's out of his.
Okay.
That wasn't, I didn't take that.
So I mean, that's the main thing.
Are
And
you
then-
out of yours,
yeah.
Derek?
I know I've gotta move my stuff this weekend, but I'll be out on
Okay.
the weekend.
Are you out of yours?
I don't even have the key yet.
Oh, yeah, you haven't
I
signed
paid,
it.
I didn't
Sorry.
sign the lease, yeah, so.
You're out of yours? No?
I'm ready to.
Okay,
I need a
you
key.
need a key. Okay, yeah,
But,
We should have fit in, I'd have drug it in there a couple times.
so,
and then I do kinda wanna look more into like if we can base 2 aircraft in the same hangar. Without that being a big issue. I know with people you mentioned and even property that once it's in there, you can't evict them, but I kinda wanna see if that's in writing in a statute somewhere, that if somebody parks a plane in there, that if they don't pay or if they don't leave when they're supposed to, you can't yank them out.
yeah, but it becomes a civil issue. It's not really a criminal issue, but it's a civil issue.
I just wanted to
And-
see where that was in writing, so it doesn't become something, cause we've got to where we could put 2 planes or 2 aircraft, I'll say, in the same hangar. They'll fit.
As long as they belong to you and that hangar is
Right.
yours, then that's perfectly fine.
I have 2 in mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and Mr. Spencer are sharing one, but yeah. Which
Right.
is- I didn't know that either.
Does anyone have any other business before we
But-
move on? to
But
the
that's,
next?
hold on, but
Yeah,
that's,
that's a whole different.
that's a whole situation though, we're trying to avoid that. Whoever has the lease on the hangar, it's their owned aircraft that should be in that hangar.
Right.
If we're subleasing or doing, then that starts confusing things when we're talking about basing aircraft at our airport,
That's right.
so.
And I was unaware that you had those aircraft there, so I did have the one based when I looked on the based aircraft website yesterday, but I don't have your other one based there.
It was just for the Lochner piece. I mean, I keep it in my farm.
Okay, so you aren't there then with that one?
It's parked there.
If
Your
you
powered
want- If you want
parachute.
it there, it's there.
You want it there for funding.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah, the
say.
more-
I only brought it there because of, to get you a live in number.
Right, the
That's
more
only
we have
reason.
based there, the better.
Right.
So that's why,
Yeah,
you know,
it's just a.
we are trying to help
Okay.
you get as much funding as possible, that way we have all these aircraft based there. And I wanna go over the courtesy car with someone at some point, cause I don't fly. And you had stated when you go in, when you fly in, do you give them, like, what do you fill out for a courtesy car?
I can bring you one. It's just a form that gives them my license number and the date I was there, the IN number, my name, email address, and a time.
Okay.
I grab the keys from behind the desk, take a drive, go spend some money, come back, put the keys back, sign it back in, and go and leave.
Okay, so you don't have to call anyone or
No.
leave insurance information
No.
or anything like that, it's just, you just do that and go?
Usually a couple cars at each place.
Okay, which airport is that?
Well, I can name several. Fredericktown is one I go quite a bit. West Plains,
Okay.
Pomona is another one I go quite a bit.
Okay.
Kansas City, there's 2 that I go there.
And they
Lake
all
of
do
the
it that
Ozarks.
way, because this was put into place before me, so.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
That's the way it is in all of those, yes.
Okay.
There is one that I have to call ahead of time to make sure it's there, but, you let them know, and they'll have the keys ready for you. But that's, everybody else, I think, Tyler, I don't know how many courtesy
Yeah,
cars you
there's
use.
several along Highway 60, the keys are on the dash, you just sign it out and you bring it back with the full tank. They don't even,
Clinton.
for us, it's no trouble just to have them call the PD, just so somebody knows what's up. If you gotta put a calendar on the wall at the PD in the dispatcher's room there, just do that, just so they know, hey, it's taken, or the city's got it for training.
Clinton, Missouri, they give you a code,
Um,
and you take that code, put it into a lock, and that's where the keys are at.
Right.
And so I do that in Clinton when I fly up there.
And where the PD could say, hey, the code is XXXX, and then, once they green light them, run their license, make sure they're not a felon or something like that,
Okay.
and,
And that's not a problem, and
all they're
I
doing.
didn't, like I said, I don't fly, so I didn't quite understand. The way I'm thinking is if you're gonna fly in, you're gonna know the day ahead.
I
But
don't.
maybe you don't, I didn't understand
I'll do a
that.
training flight and we'll fly
Yeah.
up to Jeff City, we'll fly up to Iowa. just, I'll work that day, I'll fly that evening, I don't have any clue where we're gonna go.
Okay.
But I always
So-
land in
completely
Fredericktown, West Plains, or those Pomona, I go to those areas because I know that there's fuel's gonna be there, they've got, to Derek's point, I know what I'm getting into. And plus I grab the car and go get a hamburger, and then
Okay.
come back.
Oh, I completely
Yeah,
understand.
but I would never
I
know
didn't,
24
no one
hours.
had ever really explained
Yeah.
it to me before, so I didn't understand.
And if that's, if that's something we're looking to do in the future, we need to put a different lock on where we're keeping the car.
Well, it's insurance,
Right.
it's not our call. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
paying an insurance fee for that, then we don't have a choice.
Yeah, and I would keep it where you would have to leave like your insurance information, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But the 24-hour notice, we can work around that.
Yeah, and after hours, call the PD, make sure everybody at the PD and the dispatch knows. I would recommend having like a calendar on the wall to where if the city had to take it for training or something, they know that it's not there, or otherwise it's it's available.
Most generally, Brent, they don't take that car anymore,
They
do
haven't
Okay,
in
good.
a year or
Okay.
two, somewhere
Yeah,
thereabouts,
I-
yeah, they've kind of quit that.
Okay.
Yeah, they've kind of stopped using that one,
Yeah.
so it's normally available. Usually if someone contacts me, then I contact Brent and, make sure that he knows that it's gonna be, someone's using it and that it's ready, so
Okay,
we'll get it worked out.
all right. Yeah, we're very close here, we just need to. All right, does anybody else have any other business before we move on to the next item?
Yes, the gate, is there something we need to do? Steve, is there something that you need from us as far as the gate goes? Do you need some help with a contractor? Are we taking bids? The gate's the biggest problem I have, is, I'd like to make sure that that's something
It's-
that we take care of.
I'm guessing ballpark from talking to D&K fencing that, you're talking $5,000 for someone to put that together.
Okay.
So at $5,000, we would put it out for bids. No, we would
No,
not.
we need,
Okay.
we need 3 written quotes.
3 written quotes.
Mhm.
So I'll just reach out unless you know some
Hmm.
vendors.
Is there an FAA regulation on this gate, since you're doing everything else? Like, is there certain entry points that you need to check into? I mean, are those things that D&K fencing know? Is there, if you do a gate that's electronic, is there a regulation to that?
Well, we're not putting the gate in if we're gonna use the one that's already there, right? We're
Yeah,
just
but
gonna-
I mean, as far as insurance goes, I mean, FAA, you're talking about all the funding, I mean.
This is just out of our budget, this
you don't
isn't
have
going
to-
through there.
You don't have to comply
It's
with
not
anything.
federal money, I think is what you're thinking.
Now, Ian, could we get the gate opener put on our,
There you go.
I'm just asking.
along with our fuel tank and the paint striping?
I can ask.
It's a very
I
small,
don't-
it's, compared to our other projects, I think we're looking at maybe a little more, $5,000.
There is a method called the small procurement process. It's a little different than our traditional bidding process that we normally go through, like we did for the hangar. Let me look into the feasibility of that as well when I talk to MoDOT.
Okay, excellent. So, help us out a little more possibly there. All right, so our next item would be the public comment section. Our mayor recommended that we added this on there. What we would do is if anybody from the public has any comments, we give them 3 minutes to say what you need to say. So, anybody have anything they'd like to say?
Are all the new hangars filled up, like are they all leased?
I have one left. I just haven't gotten, I'm working through the list.
Do you have a list, do you have a list you provide everybody?
I don't have it on me though.
Because that's all I wanted.
If you have more questions, you can get with me tomorrow.
Well,
I didn't bring any of that information with me.
Huh?
I didn't bring any of that
I just-
information with me.
I was just asking, I didn't know if there was actually a list or if we were, I didn't know if we were through all the people that were there and if everybody was concurrent to keep their own hangar and where we could start leasing to the public.
We've already,
I don't understand.
yeah, I'm not
sorry.
understanding
I
your
don't
question
understand
either
your
then.
I mean, Tim Fulton was there to rent a hangar and you told him that they were not available.
That's not what I told him.
That's not what you told him.
That's not what I told him. No. And if you want to discuss this, we can do that later. Okay?
I think you should probably discuss it in front of the board.
Do you have questions for me about that?
So how many more are on the list, I guess? Because everybody now, we're moving around, so
Right.
you're gonna have 4 hangar, well, one of them's a helicopter hangar, so I don't know if you've got anybody waiting for a helicopter hangar, but, so we should move at least 3 down your list. And we had
like I said, I don't have that information with me. I did not bring the wait list, but there were other people there when that conversation happened yesterday, and that is
Okay.
not what I told him.
Okay. Yeah. We just wanna make sure everything gets filled as efficiently and quickly as possible, cause some of those guys on the waiting list have been waiting a very long time, so. But we know that and you guys know that, so. Any other comments?
You talked about other aircraft moving in. What other aircraft are gonna be rebased here, or do you have an idea of that? You said we currently have so many.
Six, I think.
You said 6 additional aircraft are looking to move here?
You're talking about on the waiting list?
Yeah.
I know there's at least 2 that have planes right now today that if she calls and says, hey, we've got a hangar available, they will be moving that plane to base at Salem. Now, as far as the others, we've had several I know of that have talked to me that, and I would be right there with them, who will not buy a plane. I think you were in this situation. You didn't have a hangar, you didn't have anywhere to put a plane, so you want to buy a plane, but you're not going to buy one until you have a hangar. So we've got several in that situation as well. But there are at least 2 who own planes today who will move them here and base them here right now.
Right, and as of yesterday, everybody on that list had been contacted but 2. Is that right? Well, there was only 1 or 2 people left as of yesterday. So, I mean, we have been working down that list,
Yeah.
so.
Good.
I got a call.
Yeah, I am working on it,
Yes,
so.
very good.
Is there gonna be a coded gate entrance on 32? So I guess there's ample room to be able to pull in and push the key in, from the highway and everything?
If you're bringing a trailer, I'd still come in from the F highway entrance, if that's what you're
I'm
getting
bringing
at.
a trailer. No, I just was curious. I haven't pulled into that with the gate closed, so I just was curious.
I'd say 2 quad cab trucks.
It's-
As
Okay,
far as
it's
my
pretty
bumper
good
in there.
distance.
I pull my lawnmower trailer and, my full-size truck and have
Awesome.
plenty of room to get off the
Yeah,
roof.
we had a crack seal machine behind the truck and still plenty.
And I contacted MoDOT just to make sure there's no conflict there with using that as the main gate, because I know in Alaska it was, you had to use the secondary highway or, the safer route, so they don't have any issue with it, and I get your point, the other gate's got a lot of FOD and debris that would get carried onto your taxiway that's dangerous, so. I
The
think it's
only
the
thing
window.
I can think of on that, there is a pedestal there, right next to that gate. So I'd wanna make sure we can put the post in for the key code and not disrupt those wires.
Probably buried phone cable.
I'll bet there is, and they're supposed to be a certain depth, but they're not always at certain depth,
Okay.
so we might have an issue there, and that just, as you were saying that just came into my mind, so.
Maybe do the locates and see what's
Yeah.
there before we go.
That should be on the contractor though.
I mean, before we even go through with the whole process, maybe do some locates.
You
and
may have to do the other side,
Yeah.
then get your bid over there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we might have to, especially if he's gonna look into it and see if maybe they can help, but, yeah.
We have to bring power from the new box that's, the new panel over by the hangar, so, another $500 and.
Yeah, and you do have that other gate there that's in front of the fuel tank that could be made, cause there's parking blocks there behind that, and that may be a better option anyway, if we have to do it off of that. Those
Gate's
posts,
not in great condition.
well, you're not gonna be using that gate anyway, you're gonna be
Yeah,
putting a
that's
sliding
usually
gate.
when the 18-wheeler comes in to unload fuel, that's the one we let him in.
So that may be a better location than any of them then, if we're gonna have locate, or wires in our way. So,
Well, but unless we're using that same containment area, you might wanna think about, we gotta have fuel tanks right there. We're gonna ever asphalt that, you don't wanna be crossing over that and have it, the lines dug underneath and, we're putting a lot of stuff in one area,
You definitely.
future-wise.
And conduit.
Yeah,
That way, if there's ever any issues.
yeah.
all the plumbing and electrical should be on the other side from that, and then,
From that main gate, where they pulled an 18-wheeler, it's not, it's in between, you actually pass between the fuel tank, right, and the pump.
no, it's the fuel tank in the hangar.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be anything there to crush.
Well,
I
Dolmeyer's
wouldn't
hangar,
think so.
you know, that's the
Dolmeyer's
gate.
is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, what about the Domeyer hangar where the siding and the fascia's missing and it's kind of rotting down? Is that something that's on the radar to update to fix those things?
So that's one of those deals, I just recommend
Just
your
out of
building
curiosity,
inspector look
you
at
know.
all of them and see, hey, you know.
Which is why we want to do that, why we want to go through all of them and,
That's just, so the structure doesn't completely is a
Gotcha.
total loss.
And again, y'all don't need our permission to do that, it's in our lease, that y'all
gotcha,
can
in the old
inspect them
leases,
and.
gotcha. I knew that had not been habit in the past, and I know that is something that is in the new leases, that at least once a
I
year.
think it's in the old one too,
Okay.
where you can inspect them.
I'll double check just to make sure, but that was something that we want to start doing every year anyway, if not more often. But for multiple reasons, we need to make sure that we know what the condition of the hangars are and if they need work or repair, but we also need to know what's going on in there. I mean, just because, again, if we have planes that
Storage.
aren't flight worthy or storage or, yeah.
And you
I
do it
mean-
across the board, you're not gonna run into these discriminatory issues. so.
Exactly. And so that is our plan longer term. So,
It would be nice to, just something to consider, having a contractor come in and, caulk all all your stuff on top of the metal roofs and spray them down with that white liner. Because Derek and I have talked extensively, he's had leaks, I believe one of you guys have had leaks, and, I mean, rather than the, process of going through and nitpicking each one of them, maybe down the road, having them all, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah,
It's that
yeah.
liner on top.
Yeah, we can't restore them to factory new because they're
No,
old buildings,
but-
but just make it to where we're not gonna have.
We put a coating on them probably 20 years ago.
Well, that's-
Flying into it would be nice to see.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I just had a
What it is.
$60,000 coating, silicone coating put on a warehouse roof, and it's got a 10-year warranty, so.
It's actually in 20,000, it was Del Run, so.
Thanks, make me feel better.
Sorry.
So good that I'm gonna say, does anyone have anything further? And, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Feeling sick now, you just made me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Wanna get a
My son
River
always
Ways
charged me that,
loan.
didn't it?
They're not gonna pay it.